This ugly loser is kicked out from his party after being the most useless member of the group. One day he meets a hot girl who invites him to her party, and later he becomes the strongest of them all. Lloyd is a boy whose entire village got Thanos snapped in the crossfire of a battle with the demon lord, and now he's just a traumatized orphan with dead eyes and unresolved trauma. Merlin stumbles upon this sad loser, and realizing it was her oopsie that leveled his hometown, adopts him like a guilt-ridden magical raccoon. To make up for it, she takes him in and begins training him in magic. The first lesson is a flame spell, which she shows him for 3 seconds before threatening to skip his dinner if he fails. Miraculously, by nightfall, he produces a tiny flame. Instead of praise, Merlin mocks it and singes his brows with her own magic, though she lets him eat. The next day, she moves to water magic, casually creating a spout with a foot swipe. Lloyd tries and only dampens the ground proudly. Unimpressed, Merlin drenches him to make her point. This pattern of harsh lessons and punishing feedback continues as Lloyd does his best to improve. Surprisingly, her teaching style proves effective. By winter, Lloyd's magic has advanced enough that he casually conjures a snow statue of Merlin with just a flick. She's touched but stays in mentor mode, taking over the sculpture and enlarging it to 30 feet before using it to grab him and show off some real snow control. The sculpture collapses and Lloyd ends up buried, but he gets up laughing and promises to train even harder. Merlin, smiling, nods in approval. Later, after a wild night of drinking, she wakes up with a brutal hangover sprawled on the couch. Concerned, Lloyd checks on her, and she admits she feels awful. Wanting to help, he places his hand on her forehead and channels his white magic to ease her pain. Within moments, she feels revived, pulls him into a hug, and thanks him, then immediately drags him outside to resume his training. This routine continues for years until one morning, Merlin receives a mysterious book in the mail that rattles her. Just then, Lloyd arrives to say dinner's ready. As she hides the book, it slips from her grasp and falls in front of him. He bends down to pick it up. The moment Lloyd touches the book, a surge of knowledge crashes into his brain, knocking him out cold. Merlin, shocked by what just happened, realizes Lloyd might be the chosen one. She lays him down to rest, placing a gentle spell on him with a glowing kiss to keep his ego in check. She won't let him repeat her mistakes. The following day, training resumes and Merlin leads him to the woods to try white magic. Lloyd ripens a fruit with ease, earning praise, but Merlin shows how far he still has to go by making the whole tree bloom. That night, while tutoring him, she warns him about orcs that command beasts with rare spells. Lloyd stumbles on a mention of ancient magic, but Merlin quickly shuts down the topic, saying it's not something he needs to know. During another lesson, she teaches him how to summon his magic staff quickly. When he hesitates, she whacks him with hers, reminding him to never slack off no matter how strong he gets. Lloyd vows to stay committed. In the next session, Merlin introduces magic stones, solidified magic energy that can even transform nearby matter into more stones. After a few years, during one of Merlin's lessons, she suddenly drops Lloyd deep in the woods, hands him a knife, and tells him to survive and find his way home, then vanishes before he can protest. Moments later, a white wolf appears and attacks, forcing Lloyd to flee and climb a tree to hide. Knowing his white magic won't be enough to beat it, he decides to sneak his way back instead. Scanning the area with a spell, he realizes he's far from home and begins a slow, cautious trek. At night, he studies his magic to improve it. Days pass until he steps on a twig, triggering a chase from a giant spider. Panicked, he boosts his speed with a haste spell and escapes. Lloyd finally makes it home, collapsing at the door. Merlin finds him and praises his success. Years later, while cleaning, Lloyd spots a book on Merlin's desk about a town, and she lets him keep it when he asks. Lloyd has nearly finished his training, so he no longer deals with Merlin's daily lessons. Still, she often drags him along to help invent new spells since he's gifted at it. He appreciates being treated more like a peer now, but after a week of sleepless nights spent doing research, he's growing tired of the constant grind and still wonders what city life is like. So he makes a bold choice. The next morning, when Merlin comes to fetch him for more experiments, she finds his room empty. Seeing the open book on his desk, she quickly guesses where he went. Lloyd, meanwhile, is exploring town for the first time, awestruck by the energy of it all. But after buying a loaf of bread, he's completely broke and realizes he needs work fast. Just then, an adventurer recruitment flyer smacks into his face and he takes it as fate. He joins up. Unbeknownst to him, a cloaked figure is tailing him with keen interest. Soon after, Lloyd and his new party are atop a castle, preparing to battle a massive cyclops. When Alan, the leader, calls for healing, Sheena moves in, but before she can cast, Lloyd boosts the whole party with his upgraded enhancement spell, lifting everyone's spirits. None of them realize Lloyd caused the power boost, since he stayed silent. After the buff, the archer hits the cyclops in the eye, and Mag easily blocks a punch, surprised by how simple it was. Alan, unaware of the enhancement, confidently defeats the cyclops in one blow, thinking it was all him. Only the knight suspects Lloyd had something to do with it. With the monster down, they return to town where Alan is celebrated as a hero, since defeating a cyclops is rare. The reward is massive, but Alan only gives Lloyd 5 coins, claiming it's fair for a newbie dank adventurer. Lloyd accepts without protest. When Alan proposes a toast, Lloyd quietly leaves, not wanting to join. The mage is annoyed, but Alan brushes it off, saying they can find another white mage since Lloyd didn't help much anyway. Meanwhile, at Merlin's place, a man arrives to report. He tells her Lloyd reached town and joined a hero party. Merlin is glad he's safe and believes it's finally time for him to explore the world. As long as he doesn't end up cocky like she once was, she believes he'll be fine. When asked if she still regrets that day, Merlin's expression darkens, haunted by her past. She hadn't foreseen the demon lord's willingness to blow himself up for the magic book, which led to an entire village being wiped out, Merlin included. Cybele managed to revive everyone with forbidden magic, sacrificing his own life, and Merlin has never stopped blaming herself. Meanwhile, Lloyd continues supporting his team behind the scenes, casting buffs during fights to keep their streak alive, though no one realizes how vital he is. That night, Rena is researching defense spells when Alan walks in. She mentions the enemy hits don't feel as heavy lately and wonders why. Alan agrees but chalks it up to talent, though Rena points out he hasn't been training. Elsewhere in the woods, guards wrap up patrols when one suddenly screams. His partner looks up to see a towering golem looming above. In that instant, he realizes he might actually die over a dead-end job. The next day, the guard captain asks Alan for help. Some patrolmen were slaughtered the night before. Alan agrees, thinking it'll be simple since it's just a golem. Using Lloyd's tracking magic, they find it hiding in a cave behind a waterfall, and take it down with ease thanks to Lloyd's support. But a nearby demon uses a magic stone and staff to summon another golem from the cave ceiling. Realizing how dangerous that is, Lloyd casts an accuracy buff and tells Lulu to shoot. She hesitates but obeys, somehow landing the shot. He then gets Mia to teleport the staff to him and seals it with a spell. Alan, annoyed at Lloyd's leadership, charges in to land the finishing blow. Lloyd speeds up and shoves him out of harm's way, saving his life, but Alan just yells at him for interfering. Afterward, Alan kills the golem, fires Lloyd for being useless, and claims he never helps. Years of Merlin's criticism make Lloyd blame himself, so he leaves quietly. For days, he struggles to find a new group. White mages aren't exactly in demand. But just as he's losing hope, a girl named Yu finds him, grabs his hand, and begs him to join her party. Lloyd had been aimlessly strolling through the city, still smarting from being kicked out by Alan. The leader had accused him of hiding behind others and letting Sheena do all the healing. Oddly enough, Lloyd agreed. He hadn't been very capable back then, so he didn't take the criticism too hard. Passing a fountain with his master's statue, he recalled her telling him he wasn't ready yet. Now he finally understood she was right. Meanwhile, the group that was meant to hire a white mage had gathered to raid a gang's wooden base, Dirty Block. The pink-haired girl acted confident, but even she knew this mission was high risk. Though the team was skilled, the enemy was vast, seasoned, and tightly run. Still, the adventurers pressed on. When the mage called for cover, the archer fired with perfect precision. When the warrior nearly got ambushed, the tank blocked the strike just in time. At the rear, a support mage kept the team enhanced. With a single buff, they overpowered the enemy and secured victory. As everything crumbled, the gang leader tried to flee, only to be surrounded by the adventurers, all wearing his own rank's symbol. Cornered, the gang boss made a last stand by summoning a massive stone golem. The adventurers knew magic and arrows wouldn't help much, so their lead warrior stepped up. Her first sword strike only chipped the golem's head. Calling out to Clum for a physical boost, she struck again, this time slicing the monster clean in two. After the battle, Clum apologized for losing focus, doubting if she belonged in such a skilled group. But the warrior reassured her, knowing Clum had her mind on her sister Sylvie's struggles. The next scene jumps back to Lloyd being rejected by the guild's archer, just before a pink-haired girl barges in. The receptionist, desperate to find a white mage, doubted anyone could meet the S-rank team's standards, but the party was ready to accept whoever they could get. Lloyd, just trying to join a team, was suddenly yanked out of the guild by the girl, who dragged him over to the others. Shocked Yu found someone so fast, especially since she didn't know his name. She asked him to introduce himself, and a nervous Lloyd replied. Yu introduced their squad. Dagus, the shield user, Cross the archer, Silica the mage, and herself as the swordswoman and leader. She welcomed Lloyd as the newest recruit, but he quickly denied ever agreeing to join. Silica muttered that she expected this, while Dagus noted Yu hadn't explained the situation. Cross suggested ditching the mission without Clum, but Yu reminded them that the clients were desperate and only a high-ranking team like theirs could even accept an A-rank job. Lloyd was stunned. They were clearly elite, yet Alan had always called him worthless. He doubted he could contribute at all, but Yu remained optimistic, assuring him he had potential. The group asked him to demonstrate a support spell. Nervous under their expectations, Lloyd started sweating buckets, feeling completely out of his depth. To make things easier, Dagus proposed they request a specific spell. Yu then asked him to cast a team-wide buff. Cross and Silica doubted any regular white mage could do that and were ready to drop it. Lloyd asked if this was the only requirement to join, and Yu confirmed. He just had to buff everyone at once. The pressure grew heavier. No one but Yu truly believed he could pull it off. Still, Lloyd inhaled deeply and gripped his staff, ready to try. Out of nowhere, Lloyd's staff appeared, stunning the party as he conjured glowing magic circles that spun in a line beneath the S-rank adventurer in a vibrant light show. Yu, jaw slack, asked where it came from. He casually replied it was a storage spell, but he wanted feedback on his buff. Yu had no clue it even worked. The others tried to feel something. Only Cross noticed a slight lightness. Their leader tested it by slicing a massive tree in one swing, shocking everyone. Lloyd then listed 5 spells he casts: Strength, Defense, Magic Boost, Mana Efficiency, and Resistance. Thinking it was too basic, he apologized and walked away, thinking he failed. The team quickly stopped him, realizing he'd misunderstood their awe. Later, Lloyd revealed he'd once belonged to the legendary 4-hero group but was dropped for lacking skill. Silica was amazed, but Lloyd downplayed it, claiming any tree could drop 5 white mages like him. Cross can't help but ask where Lloyd got his dollar store confidence. Lloyd suggests they try to bring back their former white mage, Clum, who left the group due to her sick younger sister. Clum had been pushing herself, taking care of her sister daily while still adventuring, until the stress wrecked her health and she collapsed on a mission. She quit, thinking she was driving everyone down. But now going into a ranked challenge without a white mage is risky, so they're hunting for a replacement. Seeing the group still admire Clum, Lloyd feels a bit jealous and asks about the sister's illness. They're not sure, but it's some rare disease that turns the body into Magistone. That rings a bell. His mentor once taught him Magistone is solidified mana that spreads its transformation. Remembering this, Lloyd asks to visit Clum's home. Later, he and the team leaders show up, and he immediately brings up Sylvie. Clum explains Sylvie was injured in battle and hasn't woken up since. Lloyd is taken to her room, and as soon as the door opens, he's hit by a surge of dark mana. Clum pulls back the blanket to show her sister, slowly turning into Magistone. Lloyd believes he can save her if his theory is right. Clum doubts him, saying even elite mages failed. Lloyd explains the cause might be a wound Sylvie got from a pure Magistone in a mana-heavy cave. Clum confirms they were mining when Sylvie was cut. Lloyd realizes that mana entered the wound and spread, just like his mentor described. Despite her doubts, Clum lets Lloyd try. He raises his staff and light clashes with the dark energy on Sylvie's body. The force makes him hesitate. He explains he's using a reverse mana transfer to extract the corrupted energy. The transformation worsens because the mana is unstable, so he must reduce it to near 0 or healing won't work. He then adds a unique healing spell that barely uses mana, allowing him to draw out even more while restoring her. Yu asks if this is difficult, and Clum says difficult doesn't even come close. He's casting dual magic and using self-made spells. Lloyd's ability to endure such an immense flow of mana is nothing short of incredible. No average person could survive it. As the healing continues, Yu watches in amazement as Sylvie's Magistone-affected body starts to recover. Once she's fully healed, Lloyd ends the spell and collapses, gasping. Sylvie awakens to see her sister crying, bringing a smile to Lloyd and Yu. Afterward, Clum gratefully thanks Lloyd, promising to adventure with Sylvie again once she's truly healthy. Before parting, she tells Lloyd he's proven himself capable of leading, though he humbly insists he's still not part of the team. That night, the S-rank squad gathers to celebrate Sylvie's recovery, all thanks to the underestimated rookie healer. Despite everything, Lloyd stays modest and quietly wishes Clum would return. As the party continues, Daggers casually asks what everyone would want to be in a next life. Silica wants to marry and Yu agrees, adding she'd like to become a true hero with the team. Suddenly, Lloyd blurts out a request to join them. The group happily accepts, and their leader proposes a welcome party. Lloyd tries to decline, but Yu insists, leading to playful teasing that she just wants to drink, which sparks a loud, flustered argument. The team quickly gathers to celebrate, and Lloyd is touched by the feast prepared in his honor. Without being overly modest, he eagerly enjoys every dish, praising the local flavors. The others are puzzled since the food is just average by the town's standards. But Lloyd recalls how different things were when he was younger, training under his magic tutor who cooked with herbs and mushrooms. Meat was a luxury. Curious, his friends ask about this mentor. Lloyd says she focused on attack spells and often caused accidental explosions with her wild experiments, though she still taught him a few support techniques. Intrigued, Silica considers asking the mage for advice, but Lloyd warns her it's a dangerous path. Cross assumes the tutor was strict, but Lloyd says she also had a warm, caring side beneath the chaos. Just then, the leader calls for a strategy meeting. Before that, they agree to fill in the newcomer. Yu, bad at explaining, tries to hand it off to Daggers, who reminds her she's technically the leader, but takes over anyway. The shield bearer explains their mission: eliminate monster groups wrecking local farms. Strangely, various species are working together, something adventurers haven't faced before. Cross notes it'll be tough for him and Yu, and the captain says they'll need Silica's wide-range magic. But Silica warns she can't afford to burn all her mana, so she'll rely on their support. Yu then asks if Lloyd can fight with magic. He says yes, but his attack spells aren't strong. His real strength is in support. Daggers gives rolls, he and Yu will distract the monsters. Silica will cast her area spell, Cross will guard her and Lloyd will boost and heal. Silica says she's curious to see his magic, but Lloyd downplays it, dampening the group's mood. Yu urges him to believe in himself, but he reminds them he was kicked from the hero squad. Cross says he'd rather work with someone humble like Lloyd, and the team agrees. After leaving the tavern, they plan to regroup at the inn. As the veterans head off, Daggers sees Lloyd walking elsewhere. Lloyd admits he can't afford a room. The tank tosses Lloyd a pouch of coins as an advance for their upcoming missions. Grateful for the trust, Lloyd promises to earn every coin, and the shield bearer says that's what he expects. That night, Lloyd reflects on how kind the team is and vows to repay them through hard work. The next morning, the group gathers and waits for Yui, who shows up with a backpack and asks why no one else has one. Cross explains Lloyd used storage magic to carry their gear. Excited, Yui hands over her belongings and Lloyd uses his staff to store them, impressing the team. He even offers to teach them the technique, saying anyone with a bit of mana can learn it. Lightened and in good spirits, they head toward the farms. Daggers later points out that beyond the mountains lies the Megacracy, home of the demons, currently quiet but always a threat. Soon, they reach a deadly bridge, and to ease the tension, Yu throws out a random question. What do you do with water? Prompting everyone to respond. I boil it. I spill it. I freeze it. I throw it. I drink it. I dump it on my head. Seeing Lloyd confused, the captain urges him to give a silly reply too. Lloyd admits it's not something he learned from his mentor. Cross explains the point is to be goofy and laugh at being wrong, while Yu says it helps ease stress on long trips. Lloyd still doesn't get it, so she adds that staying tense just wears people down. She asks another question. What do you call someone who carves a new path? The veterans quickly respond, trail cutter, pathfinder, trail sharer. Lloyd, last to answer, blurts out, I've walked a hard road. It's not great, but he's playing along, and that's enough. Meanwhile, in a forest, a hooded figure prays before a black stone pulsing with chaotic power. Back with the group, since they're traveling light, they reach camp early, set up fast, and prep dinner. Yu asks to bathe, but Daggers reminds her they still need firewood and food. Lloyd offers to gather wood, letting Yu pull silica toward the water. Soon after picking up branches, Lloyd figures he has enough and heads back. While storing the wood, Lloyd notices fruits resembling the ones his master once magically cultivated. Curious, he tastes one and decides to bring more for the others. Suddenly, a girl screams. He rushes over and sees a massive basilisk emerging near Yu and Silica at the river. The serpent, fast and deadly in water, charges them. The girls try to flee, but it's futile, until Lloyd arrives and launches a spell to distract the creature, giving them time to escape. He throws them their weapons and casts support magic. As the beast strikes again, Yu slashes it clean in half. Still alive, it thrashes until Silica finishes it with a blazing fireball. Yu cheers wildly while Silica wonders how she managed such power. Grateful, their captain thanks Lloyd for saving them, then asks him to retrieve her scabbard across the river. As she gestures, her towel slips off, prompting a shriek. Later, the group gathers to learn storage magic, though Yu, sporting a bright red slap mark, avoids eye contact as Lloyd explains how to use it by opening space between the hands. No one really understands it, but they try anyway, though it gets them nowhere. Lloyd apologizes for being a poor teacher and feeling useless. Daggers tells him not to blame himself, and Cross reminds them they're all still learning. Grateful for their support, Lloyd finally smiles. Then Silica tries saying storage aloud, and it works. Magic forms in her hands. All they needed was a spell. Unlike Lloyd, they need incantations. By late afternoon, Silica stores her staff and earns praise. Cross attempts the same with his gear, but only manages half. That night, the team's white mage sits by the fire while Yu keeps watch, noting the area is clear. Sensing something's off, Lloyd asks her about it. She sits and thanks him for joining the team. He says he had no reason to refuse. Still, the captain feels like she pressured him into helping after caring so much about the mission. When Lloyd asks why she's so invested, Yu reveals it reminds her of home. As a child, her village was destroyed by monsters, and she was the sole survivor. She couldn't ignore reports of monsters attacking farms. Losing crops could devastate small villages. Mid-story, Lloyd hushes her and tells her to wake the others as he grabs his staff. After waking, the group hides in the trees, spotting giant spiders like the ones from their quest. When the spiders head their way, the adventurers try to sneak off, but Yu steps on a branch, alerting the creatures. As they flee, one spider jumps ahead, cutting them off while the others flank them. The team summons weapons and blocks web attacks, but Silica's staff gets stuck. Webs soon cover the area, making movement difficult. Daggers asks for a plan, and Lloyd steps up, casting spells to stop the spider's legs and telling Yu to attack. She slashes through the webs, pinning them down. Cross retrieves Silica's staff while Yu shields herself and slices the spider's legs. Another approaches, but she drops it too. As the third attacks, Yu uses the web's force to launch forward, cutting 2 legs. Silica blasts fireballs and Cross's arrows trigger explosions, finishing it off. After the fight, Lloyd apologizes for taking command, but Daggers and Yu say he did well. They agree he should lead. The next morning, everyone packs up, and as they leave, Lloyd wonders about the spider's presence until Yu calls him to catch up. At camp that night, Lloyd kept dwelling on the odd behavior of the creatures. They all seemed to be heading in one direction. Yu broke his thoughts, asking if he'd take night watch again. He agreed, and Silica warned he'd burn himself out. Lloyd insisted on guarding so the others could rest, saying sleepless nights were normal for him, and this was his way of contributing. Yu muttered that he might be more useful than she thought, and Silica gave in as long as he promised to speak up if it became too much. The next day, as they traveled, the swordswoman kept eyeing Lloyd. She noticed him using a fairly advanced detection spell to sense nearby threats. Lloyd didn't think much of it, since its range was small, but planned to use it regularly to avoid ambushes. You worried he'd exhaust himself? But he said he'd be fine. She asked if she could help, but when he declined, she felt awkward and admitted there was nothing else she could do. That night, while Lloyd was again on watch, the leader asked Silica if he just didn't trust them. Though always eager to help, Lloyd rarely leaned on others. Silica noted everyone grows at their own pace, reminding the group that even she and Yu weren't close at first. She suspected Lloyd struggled with confidence, needing time to open up. Yu found him puzzling, clueless about normal things but oddly knowledgeable in other areas, which only deepened her curiosity about his past. Silica believed he'd share when ready if they gave him space. The warrior agreed, though still had doubts. Lloyd was unpredictable. Just then, Daggers invited Lloyd for a walk. Lloyd declined, saying he couldn't leave, but Cross offered to cover. Later, Daggers showed Lloyd a line of warning bells set in the forest and told him to rest. Lloyd refused, still on edge. Daggers said that before Lloyd joined, the others handled it fine. Lloyd argued he needed to stay alert to use his magic. Finally, Daggers asked if he didn't trust them. Lloyd, surprised, said it wasn't about trust, just caution. Daggers noted that Lloyd always handled scouting and night watch alone, which made the others feel he didn't trust them. The remark reminded Lloyd of his mentor's harsh words and Alan calling him useless. He explained he just didn't want to drag the team down. Daggers told him that being a burden sometimes was okay. That's what a team was for. Mistakes were expected, but they always have his back. Lloyd, surprised, admitted he never thought that way. When he asked if it was really all right to rely on others, Daggers assured him no one doubted his skills. He then told Lloyd to get some rest before their early start. As Lloyd fell asleep, he warmed to the idea of having friends who truly cared. At dawn, Yu stretched and Lloyd shyly asked if she helped fetch water. She agreed, and the team quietly watched, smiling. Meanwhile, in a mansion, a hooded servant told his master that once the mage stones were placed, he filed a report. The master said the path was now clear, then asked about the adventurers in Ishtar. The servant replied that their summoned monsters had overwhelmed them with requests. Most of the population had already left the city as planned, leaving only weaker individuals and the hero's team behind. The boss wished he could remove them too, but the hero only moved when ordered by the kingdom. Still, it would be entertaining to see how this group handled things alone. A servant was then sent to alert the client and departed from Lord Michel. Meanwhile, with the S-rank team, Yu began feeling uneasy in the forest. The others agreed something was off, especially after Cross noted they hadn't seen a single monster in the deeper woods. Yu asked if Lloyd used magic, but he denied it. He'd only been casting detection spells, which don't repel creatures. Expanding his search, Lloyd sensed a group of monsters 10 miles ahead, near the farm they were heading to. Surprised, Yu recalled Lloyd once claimed he couldn't scan that far. He shrugged, saying 10 miles wasn't much to him. Silica reminded them that was far beyond normal. Despite their unease at Lloyd's strength, the group stayed focused. When they reached the farm, they found a large pack of dire wolves. But Lloyd noticed something stranger. It was the only area where his spell detected any monsters. Where did everyone else go? Silica and the group find it strange. Creatures as strong as these wolves shouldn't be the only ones around. Lloyd wonders about the farm's owner, and Yu explains he was hurt by a dire wolf and is now staying with his son. Suddenly, Cross notices something dark at the center of the farm, though no one else sees it. Thanks to his sharper vision, Lloyd uses a spell to boost his sight, and spots it too, a black stone radiating ominous energy. He enhances everyone else's vision and confirms it's surrounded by beast folk mana. Lloyd recalls his mentor once spoke of beastmen who could control monsters with rare magic, and it looks like this stone is responsible. Soon after, he senses a massive horde of over 1,000 monsters approaching. He's convinced the stone is drawing them in. Although Cross suggests retreating, Yu insists they can't let the creatures destroy the farmland. When asked if she really intends to face them all, she stays quiet. Daggers doubts they can outrun that many foes, and Silica warns that a fight near town could put civilians at risk. Lloyd decides they should stand their ground and reveals he has a plan, starting with a magic stone. He asks Cross if he can hit it, and though Cross isn't sure he can destroy it, Lloyd says hitting it is enough. With the support mage's enhancement, Cross fires an empowered arrow that shatters the stone. Impressed, Cross asks what Lloyd did, and Lloyd casually explains he boosted the archer, his weapon, and the arrow. Cross is shocked he can enchant all three at once, but Lloyd shrugs it off, crediting Cross's aim. As the stone breaks, the wolves revert to their wild instincts and turn on each other. Yu asks if that was Lloyd's plan, and he confirms the stone was clearly affecting their behavior. However, he had assumed it also controlled the incoming horde, but they're still charging. As the monsters close in, Yu urges action, but Lloyd says it's still not the right moment. The team grows tense under the pressure, but the mage stays composed, waiting for the right time. When three wolves charge at Silica, Lloyd tells her to act. She unleashes a firestorm, stunned by its strength, stronger than anything she conjured before. Yu demands to know what Lloyd did, and he says he boosted her magic and cut the mana cost. The flames engulf the enemies, and Lloyd tells her to cast again, this time followed by wind magic. Cross quickly figures out the wind will spread the fire and obscure the sky, giving them an edge. Lloyd then uses telepathy to relay enemy positions to Cross, who shoots down flying foes with precision. Everything's going smoothly, but Lloyd remains cautious and directs the next move. When Silica says her mana is nearly gone, he transfers his energy to her, nearly passing out himself. With renewed strength, she casts Luvia, summoning a torrential rain that douses the fire, flooding the forest. The effort drains her completely and she collapses, but Dagus catches her. Yu tells her not to worry. They'll handle things now. Silica, barely conscious, tells them not to overdo it, making Yu chuckle at the irony. She praises Lloyd's strategy, but he brushes it off, claiming he just did his job. Realizing Yu wouldn't accept the compliment, Yu readies her blade and Dagus lifts his shield beside her. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Silica lie on the ground, drained. Lloyd, frustrated by his limits, knows he still has a long way to go. A beast woman screams in terror as a demon seizes her. A beastman who resembles her rushes in but fails to stop the kidnapper. Enraged, he roars and swears revenge. Meanwhile, Lloyd, now recovered, realizes the true target is Ishtar. They've all been missiled. As the group prepares to return, the white mage reveals vials of purple fluid, noting the entire mission was likely a setup to lure strong adventurers away and leave Ishtar vulnerable. Though Cross insists the hero and knights remain, Dagus agrees Lloyd's logic adds up. The archer also recalls the strange magistone they saw. Convinced the city's at risk, they head back. Lloyd drinks a potion, casts a buff spell, and sprints off at blinding speed. The others follow, suddenly weightless, as he tells them it was a speed spell. Meanwhile, at a remote estate, the demon brings the beast woman to Michelle, who welcomes a guest called Grist. He asks not to be addressed formally, but Michelle jokes about it. Grist warns that their plan is unfolding perfectly and Ishtar's fall is near. He hopes she'll stay useful, and Michelle agrees she's valuable. They can benefit a lot from her. Grist doesn't fully understand, but knowing the man was once the demon lord's right hand, he trusts his skill. The man says he'll do anything if paid well. Meanwhile, the kidnapped beast girl is now imprisoned. Michelle brings potions, saying it's time to tap into her power. The man activates a dark magistone with a device, beginning his plan. Elsewhere, Lloyd's group hurries toward Vischer. After resting, Lloyd hands out purple potions. Silica worries he'll run out of mana, but he says he's used to it. When asked if he's done this often, he shrugs. It's second nature now. He recalls how his mentor once abandoned him deep in the forest to train. For a white mage, surviving alone meant running and using every buff spell he had. It was brutal, but he got through it. Yu says his childhood sounds rough, but Lloyd just sees himself as still learning. Lloyd believes his harsh training was normal, given how often his mentor scolded him, and thinks it worked well. Yu and Silica disagree, calling it unhealthy. He starts doubting himself, wondering if he's done enough since he's far below his elite teammates and feels the need to push harder. The girls sigh, thinking he's a bit unhinged, but let it go, figuring only a madman understands another. Dagus calls them back to the road, and Lloyd casts layered buffs that accidentally trigger a detection spell. After hours trekking through dense woods, they near Ishar. The girls praise their pace, but Lloyd suddenly stops, causing a pileup. Cross demands an explanation, and Lloyd says he sensed something ominous. He volunteers to investigate alone, but Yu offers to go too. The rest follow, unwilling to leave him. Elsewhere, 4 cloaked figures activate a dark artifact. By nightfall, the group reaches a cabin. He senses nearby demons and someone of another race. Yu, concerned, asks if they're from the Megacracy, which he confirms. Earlier, Dagus had warned that beyond the mountains lies the demon nation. Though they've stayed hidden, they could strike to seize the continent. Lloyd recalls demons are banned from the 3 main nations, but Yu notes the Megacracy ignores such laws and has a history of violent invasions. She asks if Lloyd remembers anything about them, but he recalls nothing before living with his mentor, as the war ended by then. Silica realizes he's a war orphan. Yu apologizes, but he brushes it off, more worried about a potential ambush. Cross suggests informing the knights later, but Lloyd wants to investigate first. He senses mana matching the Magistome, and Dagus suspects it's linked to the monsters that attacked the farm. Lloyd agrees, saying if Ishtar is the target, they must take the risk. Yu supports the plan, though Silica hesitates. Still, the warrior insists they protect Ishtar. The group admires her resolve and agrees this could be the breakthrough they need. The group quietly nears the cabin. Cross checks the window, it's empty. Lloyd senses foes underground with a spell and tells Silica to boost the team. She summons her sandbox and drops the roof onto the cloaked enemies below. Yu rushes in, strikes first, and demands answers. One man counters, flinging rubble with magic, but Yu deflects it. Cross shoots him down as another tries to flee. Lloyd empowers Silica again, and she keeps up the assault. An enemy hurls rocks back, but Dagus blocks them with his shield. Overwhelmed, the enemies try to escape. Yu chases one but runs into an ambush. Cross saves her with arrows. One enemy casts a spell on a captive beast woman, encasing her in a cocoon and trying to levitate her away. The party reacts fast. He runs upstairs as Lloyd orders Yu to cut him off. She and Cross trap him, but instead of surrendering, he unleashes lightning. Lloyd blocks it with shields until one bolt hits the caster himself, knocking him out. After the danger is dealt with, Lloyd dissolves the cocoon and finds a beast woman inside. The group takes her into the cabin and Silica guesses she might be from the Forest Empire. Based on her appearance, they believe she might know something, so Lloyd tries to heal her. He uses an upgraded version of the powerful spell Yu once saw heal Sylvie. Surprise, Yu didn't realize spells could be enhanced, and Silica is equally amazed. Lloyd explains his eccentric mentor used to make him help modify spells constantly, everything from anti-aging to foot treatments. The healing works and the Beast Woman wakes up. Excited, Yu bombards her with questions until the woman introduces herself as Kureha. Asked why demons captured her, Kureha hesitates, clearly afraid. Lloyd assures her they're adventurers tasked with protecting a farm and sensed beast folk magic nearby. He explains that some beast folk can control monsters, suggesting Kureha might be behind the incident. Eventually, she admits the chaos was caused by her spell. In the forest, two Ishtar scouts discover a giant magistone guarded by countless beasts. Realizing they can't win, they try to escape, but one is swiftly killed by wolves. Meanwhile, a monster army begins advancing toward the city. At the cabin, the adventurers are shocked to learn a spell exists to control monsters. Kureha reveals demons force her to use it as a weapon, confirming democracy's role in attacking Ishtar, a key city for controlling the continent. Fearing the city's fall, the group hurries back with Kureha. Lloyd feels guilty for involving her, but she insists she's safer with them. After running, they pause briefly, worried they might be too late. Lloyd detects not only a monster swarm, but a full army behind it. Yu asks what to do, and Lloyd requests Kureha's help and tells the others to warn the town and prepare. Though Yu hesitates, Lloyd reminds her teamwork is key. Inspired, the group understands the urgency. The White Mage casts a boost spell, and Yu with Daggers, Cross, and Silica rush to Ishtar, while Lloyd and Kureha head on their own mission. At his brute's mansion, Alan seethed with frustration. Every potential recruit was worthless, even more useless than that so-called trash, and not a single one could use storage magic. Maya grumbled that they could only handle 2 enhancement spells at once, and whispers began about whether Lloyd might actually be extraordinary, though Alan refused to believe it. A royal knight then arrived with urgent news. A massive horde of over 10,000 monsters was moving toward Ishtar, and the army needed their help to bolster defenses. Seeing a chance to prove himself, Alan eagerly agreed, determined to show he was the strongest in the kingdom. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Yue were already tracking that horde, which to Yu's eyes seemed even larger than the force headed for Ishtar. If it joined the main army, the city would fall, so they pressed ahead to form a plan. Their mission was clear: find a way to stop them. Kureha, however, hoped for a solution that spared the monsters, knowing they were under control by someone wielding beast folk abilities, a truth that troubled her deeply. Noticing her concern, the man assured her he would try to avoid causing harm, believing it was always best to settle matters without unnecessary bloodshed. He asked if Kureha could use her magic to send the monsters back, but she said it was unlikely due to their overwhelming numbers. The mage proposed enhancing her magic so they could try anyway, and she agreed. As he prepared his buff, her spell was blocked, making her realize something in the forest was interfering. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, Alan gathered with the remaining lower-ranked warriors, mocking their abilities and flaunting his superiority since higher-ranked adventurers were absent. His insults riled several members, but he didn't care, even calling them expendable shields. The guild branch director stepped in, reminding them the real threat was the monsters. Unwilling to lose attention, Alan loudly presented his plan. Mages would unleash their strongest spells to wipe out 10 monsters each, infantry would advance to stall the enemy, then mages would fire again. A mage timidly admitted she couldn't cast anything that powerful. One member remarked he could barely handle a single foe at most, which made Alan snap, insisting they should all be capable of far more. Even Maya admitted her magic had weakened and she could no longer cast as before, which only fueled Alan's anger. When pressed, she revealed Lulu, Sheena, and Rena had also lost strength since Lloyd's departure. Alan felt betrayed, but Rena retorted that it was his fault for ignoring their warnings and becoming arrogant, even saying he wasn't fit to call himself a hero. Furious, Alan tried to punch her, but she blocked easily. With the others glaring, he stormed out, followed by everyone except Rena. The remaining adventurers quickly realized he was nothing like the rumors, and morale plummeted. Rena then vowed to leave his party, cut ties, fight on the front lines, and suggested recruiting Lloyd. Meanwhile, Lloyd uncovered the cause behind the enemy hordes, a massive magic stone like the one from the farm carrying a dark power that Kureha said disrupted her spells. Scattered magic stones likely lay across the area, and to regain control, they'd need to neutralize them all. The Beast Woman could detect them up close, but the range was too large to search alone. To help, Lloyd linked telepathy with a search spell to extend her senses, then cloaked her with concealment magic so she could approach without alerting monsters, though a heavy hit would dispel it, making caution essential. With this method, they disabled the first stone and moved to the next, while Ishtar's defenses tightened in preparation for the incoming horde. A soldier questioned the plan, and the guild branch director understood every fighter's fate rested on one man. Earlier at the guild, Rena had revealed that Lloyd, the White Mage, was the true backbone of the hero's party, overshadowed by the public's idolization of the hero figure. When asked, a warrior confirmed that Lloyd was the reason for their unmatched strategies and insisted the war could only be won with his aid. The problem was no one knew his location. The director said he was away on an S-rank mission that would take days, though Rena hoped he might return sooner with trial magic. unless that mission was holding him back. She hoped everyone trusted that the mage was acting exactly as needed. In the present, the director confirmed the group had accepted Rina's plan, though unease persisted since all wished to safeguard their loved ones. When the horde arrived, Rina ordered the archers to fire, thinning the front ranks while shield bearers forced enemies into the trench and mages unleashed fireballs. Water spells then flooded the pit, drowning monsters and deepening the barrier. The strategy was clear: endure until the S-rank adventurers returned. Yu and her team pressed toward Ishtar, strengthened by Lloyd's support magic that kept exhaustion at bay. The white mage's resolve drove them onward without rest, knowing the city was still under attack. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Kureha reached the final magic stone, guarded by elite wolves and blood panthers. Once the beast woman disabled it, the animal's frenzy ended, revealing a new problem. The two predator species turned on each other. Their clash toppled the stone, stripping Kureha's invisibility, and every beast locked its glare on her. Lloyd cast a spell to divert the enemy's focus onto himself to protect his ally. At Ishtar's gates, several monsters vaulted the trench and charged the shield bearers, who blocked and pushed them back. On the front lines, Rina, leading the tanks, learned that the right flank had suffered heavy losses, and soon the defenses gave way, letting monsters flood in. At that tense moment, the S-rank adventurers arrived. Meanwhile, Lloyd kept the foes occupied with enhancement magic, though he couldn't overpower them, only evade with skill. Kyrian realized he was risking himself solely to shield her, and in return, she sang, channeling a strange energy that drew the monsters' attention and gradually persuaded them to retreat. When Lloyd asked how, Kureha explained she had simply shared her thoughts with them, not controlled them. They'd exchanged thanks, each having risked themselves for the other, and hurried toward Ishtar. There, the S-rank adventurers bolstered the city's defense, but the endless horde still began to push the front line to its breaking point. Arrows were nearly gone, and the mages had little mana left, yet Rina remained the unshakable figure holding the front line together, giving everyone hope that endurance might lead to victory. But hope couldn't stop the tide. Warriors fell, defenses broke, and the threat only grew. The branch director saw the army's limit reach when Kureha stepped onto the battlefield, her melodic spell weaving through the chaos and calming the feral eyes of their foes until the creatures simply turned and left in peace. Yu's group spotted Lloyd, overjoyed, and the white mage steadied and exhausted Kureha, impressed by her talent as she admired his support magic. She asked what he had done, and he explained his mana-saving and power-boosting layers, though he credited her for the true feat. The beast woman then revealed her real name, Claire, only for stone giants to appear at Ishtar's gates, proving the battle was far from over. A day later, Michelle gleefully studied a map, convinced Ishtar was under siege by 30,000 monsters, only to be interrupted by news that the horde had scattered. Meanwhile, Claire mourned the golem's silence in the forest as Lloyd suspected demonic interference. Racing ahead with a speed-boosting spell, they dodged enemy ranks and nearly got crushed before reaching the moat. Lloyd held Claire's waist and leaped across, astonishing the soldiers who felt renewed hope in the young mage. Soon, his S-rank allies joined, and as the monsters retreated, Lloyd credited Claire, though Yu and Silica were puzzled by her name, certain it was Kureha. With the golems still absent and the support mage at the trench drained, Lloyd pushed through exhaustion, knowing Ishtar's fate depended on him. The guild branch director arrived, ordering knights to guard Claire after Lloyd asked for her protection. Before parting, Lloyd thanked her, admitting the battle's outcome would have been far worse without her. She insisted it was the other way around, that they had saved her, but the guild director declared Lloyd was the city's only hope, unsettling him. Leon explained Alan had refused the war, fought with adventurers, and abandoned his duty. When Lloyd reminded her thousands of lives were at stake, she scoffed, calling Alan no hero. Suddenly, she faltered, clutching her wound, and Lloyd, though nearly drained, healed her completely, almost collapsing into her arms. She admitted his support magic had always made their party strong, yet she had never realized his true worth or stopped the others from casting him out. Tearfully, she apologized, but Lloyd still believed he was expelled for weakness. Before they could continue, the golems reached the moat. Soldiers charged recklessly and were slaughtered instantly despite Lloyd's warning. Lena raised her shield and ordered fireballs, but like the arrows, they barely scratched the stone armor. The golems pushed forward step by step. Even near collapse, Lloyd readied buffs, assuring his allies he could handle the soldiers not all at once, but in rotating groups. Lloyd swiftly enhanced the front line with physical enchantments and boosted the mages with greater firepower, though the effects wouldn't last long. Yu climbed the platform to rally the soldiers, declaring Lloyd's magic had empowered them. But doubts lingered until Lena stopped a golem's punch with her shield and Yu cleaved another in half, proving his words true. Soldiers soon felt lighter, their weapons easier to wield, and morale rose. Lloyd then ordered Cross to cover the mages and Daggers to shield Silica, so she could rain spells while he himself nearly collapsed and was carried to safety to continue supporting. Under Cross's lead, archers and mages combined firepower, while Daggers held the line for Silica's devastating attacks. After a relentless battle, only one golem remained. A soldier charged in desperation, but his sword shattered, and he was crushed by a single blow. Lloyd's enhancements faded, sending panic through the troops as they fled in terror. The last golem advanced on the gates, where Yu tried to block it, but Lena shoved her aside to save her. Daggers raised his shield, yet the crushing blow knocked him down. Powerless, Lloyd enchanted Yu's weapon, and with support from Lena and Daggis, she faced the monster. When the shields absorbed its punch, she struck in its moment of weakness and ended the battle. From afar, a mysterious mage remarked that Lloyd thrived more on a real battlefield than with adventurers. Meanwhile, the great general stormed Michelle's mansion, furious that the beast woman was freed only to find her gone. Enraged, he smashed her table and began suspecting her betrayal. Later, Lloyd awoke in an inn with Yu caring for him, regretting his weakness, but she reminded him of his worth. Outside, townsfolk crowded the door, eager to see their hero. Lloyd panics at the overwhelming attention and slams the door shut, his shyness and lack of confidence making it impossible to face the crowd. Yu urges him to step out proudly, but instead he slips through the window with his head down, praying the fall won't kill him. Meanwhile, a mage tracking Lloyd reaches a cottage only to be caught in an explosion triggered by Lloyd's former master. She confronts him, demanding how he survived, but he hides his secrets. Inside, he meets Lily and Thor, old acquaintances who call him the Phantom Alchemist since he abandoned potion making for information gathering. Lloyd's master asks about her apprentice, and the alchemist explains the boy was expelled from the hero's party, but has since joined an S-rank group and carries important news. Back at the inn, Lloyd's teammates corner him, asking why he keeps running. They explain the townspeople only wanted to thank him for saving the city, not trouble him. Lloyd insists he barely helped, but his friend reminds him that his self-doubt only hurts him, and that he needs to start believing in himself. In the cottage, the Phantom Alchemist reveals Lloyd has no idea of his true potential, a weakness that endangers not just him, but also those close to him. Saddened, Lloyd's master admits she fears her student might repeat her past mistakes. In Aishar's central square, Yu convinces Lloyd to face the people, who immediately cheer and raise their mugs, hailing him as savior. Lloyd redirects the praise to the soldiers, but they insist their victory was only possible because of him, leaving Lloyd no choice but to accept their admiration. Soon, Alan hears the news that the comrade he once abandoned is now celebrated as the great hero, while his own reputation collapses for refusing to aid in battle. Enraged, he orders his group to leave the city at once, unable to endure seeing Lloyd praised. Meanwhile, in a forest cottage, the Phantom Alchemist introduces Lloyd's elite new companions, including a prodigious 17-year-old swordswoman. As drinks are shared, the alchemist toasts the legendary group, though Lily cuts him short, demanding he speak plainly. Thor explains they gathered to honor Sybil, and the alchemist reveals the demons have been manipulating monsters through orc magic to conquer Ishtar. The pressing question remains why they act now, and it almost seems as if the Demon King has returned, claimed Lloyd's master furiously rejects, declaring that monster was destroyed long ago. Sybil fears his return would make all her struggles meaningless, but Thor reassures her that the chance is slim and worrying won't help, urging them to focus on protecting the future she created. Meanwhile, in Ishtar, the S-rank adventurers are summoned by the young lord and surprised to find Claire waiting in his mansion, honored as a guest. The lord introduces himself as Abel Lucas, though Cross first mistook him for a servant, and the others doubted he was the actual ruler since he looked too young. When Abel asked if he didn't seem older, Silica remarked he looked their age, and Yua even suspected magic, recalling Lloyd's master also appeared youthful. Abel laughed, saying he shared his secret later, but for now they had more important matters. Elsewhere, Syrian despaired over failing to find Claire until a guard rushed in announcing she'd been located. At that same time, Lloyd and his companions were shocked to learn Claire was the second princess of the Forest Empire, homeland of the orcs. Abel then asked their opinion on the Beast Woman's magic. Lloyd admitted her power was both impressive and terrifying, capable of controlling monsters. Abel agreed it was unique, which was why the demons must never capture her and why the Empire had been after her all along. In the end, the adventurers had saved the princess, and Abel revealed their next mission. Since the Empire would surely try to reclaim Claire, the Lord of Ishtar tasked them with escorting her safely to Sulf's capital, Furin. The group hesitated, saying it seemed a job for royal knights, but Abel explained knights would draw too much attention. Claire herself insisted on relying on the adventurers. After the meeting, they gathered outside to depart, and Claire asked to be called simply by her name. Though uneasy, Yu removed her glove and offered a handshake, helping everyone relax. With that, Lloyd declared it was time to head for the capital. 10 days later, after choosing the safer but longer route, the group was still far from their destination when Lloyd suggested stopping at the next town to rest. Yu casually told Claire the hot springs there were wonderful, and the Beast Woman admitted she had never experienced one. Cross thought Yu was too relaxed, but Dagga's reasoned she was just being considerate to Claire. Silica added that since Claire had grown up in royalty, Yu might be the best one to introduce her to new things. Convinced, Cross admitted Yu was showing leadership. At the moment they arrived, Yu sprinted ahead to soak first, proving she really was just laid back. The girls quickly enjoyed the hot springs, except Claire, who was embarrassed to show her body. With some coaxing, she joined, and soon the group praised her beauty, which turned into playful teasing about who had the best figure. Silica then accused Yu of eating too many snacks, pointing out her rounder shape. Meanwhile, on the other side of the partition, the men had their own playful contest. The girls joked about whose melons were bigger, while the guys tried to outdo each other by scrubbing the back of the person in front of them with the most force. Lloyd, stuck at the end of the line, let his mind wander to their mission, worrying that the closer they got to the capital, the greater the chance of demons attacking. If they truly wanted Claire, this would be the moment, though such a large-scale strike seemed unlikely. More probable was a small group of elite assassins moving unseen. Whatever the enemy planned, Lloyd knew he had to stay ahead to protect Claire and remind the demons the only horn worth fearing was the one only his girlfriend could provide. Lost in thought, he ended up scrubbing across it back far too hard, prompting shouts of "Easy, Lloyd" from the men's section of the hot spring. Afterward, the group gathered to plan the journey. Lloyd suggested staying in town longer to finish up loose ends before heading to the capital. Daggers quickly agreed since his shield was practically a dented pot lid, and Silica welcomed the idea too, saying she still needed time to practice magic, or at least get a chance to fart in peace. Seeing how committed his friends were to sharpening their skills, Lloyd resolved to do the same. He was sworn to protect Claire, and as the White Mage's companion, Daggers knew he couldn't fail his friends again as he had in the last battle. The next day, determined to keep his word, he searched for equipment and happened upon Yu and Claire enjoying a boat ride through the city's waterways. When Yu asked about his progress, he admitted he'd found nothing worthwhile, prompting Claire to suggest a shabby little shop she'd noticed earlier. Though it looked unimpressive, she said it might be worth a try. With no better options, Daggers went in and was stunned by the quality of the gear. Suddenly, an old man appeared and scolded him as if he were some thug. After assuring the elder he only wanted to browse, Daggers inspected the wares and wondered why such a place wasn't thriving. The answer arrived when a gang of adventurers barged in, their leader mocking Daggers as a low-level nobody for even considering the shop's pathetic weapons. Enraged, the shopkeeper stormed out to confront them, but the leader sneered, reminding him that they were the reason business suffered. Curious, the Daggers asked if they were land grabbers, but the thugs denied it proudly. The henchmen introduced their leader like a god, revealing him as Garen, the strongest and most handsome A-rank adventurer around. Daggers only assumed he was famous, but Garen arrogantly confirmed it, mocking him as a gutter rat. Calmly, Daggers asked why an A-rank would bully an old man, and Garen grinned, explaining the shopkeeper refused to sell him a legendary relic. The old man said he'd only give it to someone worthy, which enraged Garen to the point he nearly struck him. That threat finally set Daggers off, disgusted that someone calling himself an adventurer would stoop so low. The henchman rushed him, and the bald one attacked first, only to have his wrist twisted like a child caught misbehaving. Daggers then pulled out his shield with a storage technique, which the enemies mistook for powerful sorcery, and with one brutal shield bash, he sent the whole group flying out of the shop. When Garen accused him of being weak, Daggers flashed his S-rank tag, humiliating the jealous party on the spot. The shopkeeper questions why the tank kept quiet, and Daggers coolly replies that boasting is for betas. Intimidated by the tank's sheer presence, the rival gang retreats without a fight. Impressed by the strength and honor before him, the old man offers Daggers a rare chance. Meanwhile, an adventurer trains hard in the city, polishing support spells and striving to master offensive magic so he can fight beside Silica. The problem is clear. His flames barely spark compared to Silica's explosive firepower. Yu admits the girl is remarkable, but her true gift lies not in talent or mana, but in resolve. Alone by a lake, Silica recalls how vital the adventurer's buffs were in the last war and vows to grow stronger. She struggles with unstable fireballs that fizzle or burst too soon, yet refuses to quit. Note mastery takes endless failure and persistence. That unshakable determination is what Yu admires most. Silica, called the envoy of gods since childhood, showed that same drive when Yu first met her, practicing fire magic as a little girl in an open field, trying to scorch a signpost. Silica's aim was no better than a sleepy 5-year-old boy at the toilet, but youth mixed with effort fueled her stubbornness. Refusing to give up, she unleashed a new spell that blew half the forest apart. Drenched and frustrated with her clumsy nature, especially since she pretends to be careful around teammates, she tried to shake it off and leave, only to hear a noise in the woods. Ready for a monster, she instead found Daggers, who had to explain his sudden arrival. Earlier, a shopkeeper promised him a legendary shield called Aegis, forged by the Master Ryan from unbreakable materials and so heavy only the chosen could carry it. The old man believed Daggers worthy, unlike other adventurers, but would only give it to him if he solved the mystery of the explosions by the forest lake, suspected to be monsters or demons at work. Realizing she was the cause, Silica bristled at being mistaken for a demon. Daggers believed the comparison was fair since she had wiped out an entire lake and its creatures. After the mystery was solved, he returned to the shopkeeper with his companion. Thankful the sorceress had restored the waters, though fish would be scarce for months. He apologized for her mistake, but the old man said there was no need and rewarded him with the promised shield. Daggers protested he hadn't truly finished the task, yet the merchant admired his honesty and deemed him worthy of wielding the Aegis. Overjoyed, he dashed off like a child eager to show his friends. The group celebrated his new skill, and Yu felt proud of Silica's mastery of such a vital spell, urging her to demonstrate it despite the risk of collateral damage. Watching their progress, Lloyd vowed not to fall behind, while Cross grumbled about the weight of expectations. Yu reminded them not to fear, that patience and determination would guide them to a bright, inevitable future. Her wisdom silenced the group until she added that an empty sack cannot stand. With that, she suggested Claire join her at a nearby restaurant, prompting Cross to mutter that their leader was just being lazy again. A few days later, the archer feels pressured as Davias and Silica progress faster, and though he upgrades his gear, he can't find a proper training spot in the city. While lost in thought, a boy bumps into him and Cross, the S rank, helps him up after noticing his adventurer tag. The boy, introducing himself as Lin, confirms they're both adventurers and impulsively invites Cross to form a party before dragging him to the guild, which is smaller but livelier than the one in Ishtar. Nervous, Lin apologizes, but Cross can't refuse after seeing his puppy-like expression. When asked why he isn't already in a party, Lin lowers his head as nearby adventurers mock him as the eternal rank E, assuming Cross is another rookie doomed to regret joining him. Cross realizes Lin's reputation, and though Lin admits he's a failure and a burden, the archer reassures him with a small lie, saying their ranks aren't too different, which lifts his spirits. They decide to take on a quest together, while elsewhere, a short pink-haired girl named Yui stirs trouble as she frantically searches for a famous candy shop with her tourist guidebook. After craving sweets, she notices a bit of chub on her stomach, but vows to burn off in battle with more effort. Suddenly, she sees a noblewoman accusing a terrified poor boy of dirtying her dress and ordering his death. The bystanders stay silent, knowing she's from the feared Windy clan, but Yu steps in and blocks the servant's strike. The enraged noble demands to know who dares defy her, only for Yu to smirk and say she doesn't really know, but it looks like some lady too old to be picking fights with kids. Infuriated, the noble orders her guards to attack, yet Yu tells the boy to run and parries all 3 sword strikes at once. Meanwhile, the archer Du finds the red slime nest. Cross draws his bow from storage and confuses Lin, who reminds him adventurers don't summon weapons like that, but he brushes it off and shoots one slime through the core and drops another right after. He urges Lin to join the fight, but the boy's shot is weak and off target, leaving him near tears as he apologizes, while Cross already knows this partnership will be difficult. In town, Yu stays composed and mocks her foes, confident of victory, though Wendy grows angrier as her men fail to touch the short girl. Some onlookers recognize Yu as the prodigy who reached S-rank young, but Wendy signals a hidden mage who traps Yu with draining chains she cannot break. Smiling, Wendy believes the girl will soon collapse, yet before her guards can strike again, a hooded woman appears and calls out the cowardice of 4 against 1. Wendy mocks her and demands she step aside, but in a flash, the cloaked figure defeats the guards, disables the mage, and frees Yu. Even as an adventurer, Yu can barely follow her speed, stunned at what she just saw, while Wendy is left in disbelief at how easily her escort was crushed. The hooded woman stepped forward and slapped her, leaving the noble broken and on her knees in the dirty plaza. With the matter settled, Yu thanked the stranger, who humbly admitted she only helped because she was searching for something. Curious, Yu asked how she could become as strong, but the woman told her not to rush, reminding her she was already strong for her age. Yu then admitted she often relied too much on her party's white mage, Lloyd, and wanted to grow stronger. At the mention of his name, the woman removed her hood and invited Yu to train with her. Meanwhile, Lloyd was exhausting himself with spellwork, determined to improve everything he had promised during his stay in the city. His companions, concerned, urged him to rest, but he brushed it off, claiming he had no time. Only when Claire personally asked him for a walk did he finally give in. Back in the forest, the hooded woman warned Yu not to accept invitations so easily from strangers. Yu simply smiled, saying she trusted her instincts and asked for her name. The woman gave a faint smile and told her to call her Lilith, though the way she said it made Yu suspect it wasn't her real name. Yu trusted the mysterious woman, and when Lilith announced training, she drew a sword with a storage spell, a magic Yu had never imagined before meeting Lloyd, making her realize how narrow her world was. She vowed to become as strong as this strange mentor. Meanwhile, Claire and Lloyd shared a pastry Yu had recommended. Though Lloyd thanked her, Claire said it was merely repayment for his help. She noted his exhausting research, and Lloyd admitted finding answers was always hard. When he asked if the Beast Woman's magic song was ancestral, Claire hesitated before confessing she wished she could help. At the guild, Cross trained Lin, correcting his stance and tension, teaching him to predict a target's movements. After grazing a slime, Lin steadied his chin, calmed himself, and struck his core, his joy undeniable. Cross, once thinking him clumsy, saw he was quick to learn. Elsewhere, Lilith told Yu to cut a tree without moving. Confused, Yu watched as Lilith swung her sword through the air, sending a magical strike that split the trunk. Excited, Yu realized channeling magic through her blade could counter long-range attacks. Later, Claire admitted to Lloyd she truly was haired ancestral magic, the rare gift to command monsters, confirming his suspicions. Lloyd wondered if such power could aid his research, but Claire warned only one born with it every century could wield it, and any other who tried would face divine punishment, recalling a tale of one who died attempting it. Lloyd, though curious, promised never to ask again. Back in training, Lin's accuracy improved until he and Cross cleared every slime. Cross teased about rapid-fire arrows, making Lin gape before he laughed and said it was impossible. As they prepared to collect slime cores, a Luna Magra appeared to guard them, and Cross instantly loosed an arrow into its eye. Even the spider's weak point felt like stone, and Cross knew only relentless strikes could bring it down. Lin recalled the combo shot Cross once joked about, but when she suggested an idea, he realized it could work. Using storage magic instead of his quiver, he unleashed a storm of arrows into the spider's eye until it burst, crushing its skull and piercing its brain. With the Lumina Megra slain and slime cores secured, they returned to the guild where silence quickly turned into cheers. Cross hoped Lin would finally gain recognition, though the boy hesitated to take credit, claiming Cross had done most of the work. Cross dismissed it, saying he had learned from Lin and scolding him for apologizing too much. When Lin questioned his strength, Cross revealed his S-rank tag, leaving him panicked for training under such a figure. Meanwhile, Yu struggled with her training as Lilith urged her to sink her magic with her sword. It felt impossible and Yu mocked her arrogance, but she refused to quit, repeating her stance tirelessly. When asked why she sought strength, she confessed she once thought rank placed her above others, but meeting Lloyd showed her there would always be someone stronger. Now she wanted strength to stand at his side. Suddenly, a massive feline attacked, and Yu instinctively executed the technique perfectly, slicing it in half. Lilith praised her, saying she had saved her, and Yu smiled before collapsing into sleep. Lilith caught her gently, grateful Lloyd had such allies. That night, the party found Yu asleep on the step like a child, while Lilith had already slipped away. By morning, they prepared for their mission, though Lloyd worried about his lack of progress, unaware he had already refined spells, created group magic, and invented a tracking skill. His companions only exchanged tired looks at his needless doubt. Elsewhere, Lily complained to Lloyd's master about hiding behind a false name just to watch her disciple, but Merlin snapped that she was the only one enjoying the game, pushing her to finally decide to see the boy herself. Merlin eventually arrived at the capital, captivated by its beauty and bustling life. Meanwhile, in a dark castle, Riss reported to his master a flickering blue flame that voiced disappointment over his failure to subdue even a small town. The flame pressed him about the beastwoman's whereabouts, but Riss had no answer, further fueling his master's displeasure. Once hailed as the Demon King's great general who would command an unstoppable army, Grist now stood on the verge of losing his position unless he delivered results. Afterward, he wandered the city's shadowy streets, weighed down by frustration and uncertainty about finding Claire. It was then Michelle appeared, offering assistance. Grist rebuked him for showing his face after betrayal, but Michelle calmly claimed it was only because his payment had never come. He revealed Claire was heading for the royal capital under the protection of S-rank adventurers, not common soldiers. Suspicious, Grist demanded how he knew this, and Michelle admitted he sought redemption after his past failure. Though Grist despised his cunning nature, with no other leads, he reluctantly accepted the offer. The Beastwoman traveled with her companions, their teamwork growing sharper each day, not only in battle, but also in daily life. Their bond deepened, the mood lightened, yet their vigilance never wavered. Even the rustle of a rabbit set them on edge until Lloyd confirmed with detection magic that no demons lurked nearby. They rested, but the white mage noted something unusual. When the rabbit startled them, everyone sensed it at once. Their formation had strengthened trust. You asked Lloyd what he felt, he admitted uncertainty. She teased him for doubting himself, urging him to trust more. Claire praised his talent, saying she had trained hard to reach his level, while Cross admitted it revealed how much he still had to learn. Daggers added that Lloyd's presence reminded them of their reliance on him. Yu concluded true confidence came from recognizing one's real strength. Taking their words to heart, Lloyd vowed to be more confident. Meanwhile, Merlin stood before the royal castle gates, where two guards barred her path. With a spell, she clouded their minds and slipped into the palace, heading to a chamber disguised as a library. There, a young beastwoman named Ryun appeared, recognized her, and pulled her inside. They had not met since the war against the Demon King. In secret, Ryun admitted she had sensed Merlin's magic and revealed that the Sorcerer Kingdom was now ruled by the Demon King's son, though it had remained silent since the Great War. Merlin was surprised to find Ryun's laboratory hidden within the castle, proof of the king's trust. Ryun explained her research gave her such privilege. Merlin downplayed her own worth, but Ryun reminded her she could cast without incantations and had invented storage magic without a staff. Merlin only laughed, saying necessity had driven her, then grew serious and showed a grimoire, asking Ryun to confirm whether half of its sealing power remained, for the threat of the Demon King's return still lingered. The S-rank adventurers studied their map, nearing Schwarz, their next stop before the royal capital just a day away. With night falling, Claire warned of monster ambushes, though Cross wondered if the princess's enchantments could prevent it. She admitted they wouldn't react fast enough, so Lloyd expanded his detection field only to sense interference. A thick mist spread through the forest, nullifying Silica's storage magic, and Lloyd deduced it was disrupting their powers. You suspected a monster, but Claire and the white mage concluded it was a demon's work. Fearing an ambush, they raced toward Schwarz before the fog consumed them. Elsewhere, Ryun examined the grimoire, finding traces of Sybil's corruption. Merlin interpreted it as the final testament of the fallen mage and reminded Ryun of Lloyd, the boy she once trained in the mountains, whose touch had revealed compatibility with the grimoire. Merlin realized the child held the same rare power that once chose her and Sybil. Ryun noted such strength was uncommon, but Merlin already knew and pushed Lloyd to surpass every limit, shaping him into what destiny demanded. Yet she treated his upbringing like spellcraft, ignoring his feelings and being too harsh, something she would always regret. Now Lloyd had left, escorting a kidnapped imperial princess, while Merlin longed only to hear his voice again. Meanwhile, Lloyd and his companions reached Schwarz, shrouded in the same mist that plagued the forest. With empty streets ahead, Lloyd enhanced Silica so she could summon her staff and dispel a fog, revealing General Grist and his soldiers. Claire recognized the threat as the general ordered her capture once more. Acting swiftly, Lloyd strengthened his allies, directing Davis to shield Claire across to take position in a tower, and Yu to unleash her newly mastered long-range blade technique, cutting down the attackers. Lloyd warned Silica not to use her explosion spell for fear of harming innocent townsfolk, so she switched to Fireball and struck down enemies instead. From above, Cross unleashed rapid volleys of arrows that shattered magical shields, but when he targeted Grist, the demon's hide broke arrows with ease. Yu's repeated strikes barely slowed him, and as Grist advanced, he nearly reached Claire before Dagas blocked the crushing blow with his shield. Yu tried to counter, but her attack was deflected and she was thrown back. Realizing Grist wore magical armor, Lloyd's sharp insight made the general suspect he might be the hero of Ishtar. Grist then leaped to strike, but Silica unleashed an explosion using his airborne position to avoid collateral damage. The colossal blast shook the battlefield, yet Grist remained unharmed, confident as reinforcements surrounded the group. Suddenly, a tidal wave of ice swept across the field, freezing his soldiers and forming a barrier around the adventurers. The Celian revealed on a rooftop, orchestrating the attack to protect Claire. Watching from afar, Michelle noted the battle turning grim and considered thickening the mist. Clearly no ordinary beastman, he was born resistant to the element. Celian cut the chatter and launched a brutal strike, forcing the demon to dodge. Yu and Silica offered to help, but the beastman refused their aid. At the same time, Michelle believed she had defeated the alchemist, only to see him untouched, his potions nullifying her spells. Realizing her foe truly was a legendary alchemist, she finally grasped her mistake. In the city, Celian hurled endless ice and curses at Grist, his insults so wild that even allies felt offended for the demon. Yu now understood why no one accepted him as a hero, and Dagas added that he caused more chaos than help. Lloyd, however, noticed Grist had yet to strike back. He was charging magic into his fist. When it was ready, Grist clashed midair with Celian, the impact exploding across shores. Hearing the blast, the alchemist admitted he had underestimated Michelle, unaware of her trump card. She used the distraction to escape. From the rubble, Lloyd confirmed his allies were alive except Claire and Celian. Then the princess appeared in Grist's grasp as a vessel swooped in to take the demon and his captive away. Lloyd watched helplessly as Claire was taken away when suddenly Syrian emerged from the rubble. Though badly injured, he summoned an ice pillar to launch himself upward toward Claire. Just as he was about to reach Grist, his strength faltered, the ice shattered, and he plummeted downward. Lloyd instantly ordered Silica to cushion his fall with wind magic, allowing Syrian to land safely. Ready to strike again, Syrian was stopped by Lloyd, who reminded him they couldn't fight an enemy in the sky. Syrian snapped back, telling him to piss off, but then realized his wounds had mysteriously healed. Lloyd admitted he was the one who did it, surprising Syrian since he hadn't noticed any spell being cast. Soon Yui and the others gathered, asking Lloyd for guidance, and he told them he had a plan. Syrian rejected the idea, but the rest insisted that Lloyd was the only one clever enough to handle the situation. Irritated yet cornered, Syrian reluctantly agreed to cooperate so they could rescue Claire. He remarked to Michelle that he should have deployed it during their assault on Ishtar City, but Michelle reminded him the prototype hadn't been ready then. Now, however, he had secured the necessary power source to move such a massive machine, revealing it to be a fragment of the former Demon Lord's body. Michelle explained to his stunned Grist that the previous Demon Lord had destroyed himself, yet a fragment of his body remained, still brimming with mana. From that remnant, Michelle engineered a device capable of drawing out the energy to power his ship. Grist, however, was furious that their revered Demon Lord was being used as nothing more than a fuel source. But Michelle merely laughed, claiming that his nature as a scientist drove him to uncover new possibilities. Their exchange was interrupted when alarms blared across the ship and Michelle rushed to the control panel. There, he discovered Syrian advancing by freezing the air into massive blocks of ice, leaping across them toward the vessel, while Lloyd's party followed closely behind. Syrian marveled at Lloyd's mastery of anti-gravity magic, though Lloyd clarified that the spell worked only at short range, hence the need for icy footholds. The group soon closed in on the ship and summoned their weapons, ready to fight only to be met by Grist, who emerged with full confidence, boasting that he would crush them just as before. This time, however, Lloyd had strengthened his companions with powerful buffs. Syrian struck first, yet Grist's impenetrable magic armor nullified every blow. Lloyd discreetly layered another spell upon Grist before signaling his allies to attack. Silica unleashed acidic fog, instantly dispelled by Grist's magic, and Yu's team followed with a relentless barrage. But the armor deflected everything, leaving them battered once more. Mocking them, Grist taunted Syrian, asking if he truly believed he could win. Syrian admitted that he could never defeat Grist alone, but Grist laughed, declaring that not even the entire party together stood a chance, before charging his magic punch once again. Daggers rushed forward to shield Syrian just as Grist was about to strike him. But before another blow could land, the magic gathering in Grist's fist froze and shattered. Stunned and confused, he could not understand how his arm was destroyed without taking a single hit. Syrian explained that it was frostbite from the icy winds surrounding them, though Grist still struggled to grasp the meaning. Lloyd then stepped in and revealed that when Syrian first struck, he had secretly placed a spell on Grist, numbing his pain. From that moment, their only task was to wear him down until a frostbite overtook his body. Lloyd had clarified that while Grist's magic armor was strong and only protected him from attacks he could sense, and with his pain blocked, he could not realize how the cold was ravaging him. Shocked, Grist demanded to know how Lloyd had figured it out. Lloyd answered that during their earlier battle, he noticed Grist's hair freezing even without being struck, which made him realize that unseen damage could still harm him. That was why everyone kept attacking to distract him while Syrian's spell did its work. Furious, Grist suddenly felt the pain suppression begin to fade, agony rushing back into his arm. Desperate, he fled into the ship and attempted to release the monsters Michelle was still studying, ignoring Michelle's protests that his research was not finished. All Grist cared about was forcing the creatures to fight in his place. At that moment, Lloyd and the others entered the ship and discovered Claire trapped inside a cage. Syrian furiously demands Claire's release, and the impatient Grist smashes open the cages of Michelle's experimental monsters. Chaos breaks loose as a giant snake coils around Grist, which sparks Michelle's idea to test them in real combat. He activates a hidden magic device beneath the floor, sending out a sound wave that brainwashes the beasts into obeying him. Meanwhile, Syrian destroys Claire's prison and rescues her. But before they can escape, Lloyd's group confronts the horde under Michelle's command. They prepare to fight until Claire steps forward, pleading not to harm the creatures, and channels her ancient magic to break Michelle's control. The spell frees the monsters but destabilizes the ship as Michelle's magic circles falter. Grist, trying to steady himself with the ship's power system, is struck unconscious by a violent shock. Realizing Claire's spell resonated with the Demon King's fragment, Michelle panics as it overloads and risks an explosion. He extracts and cools it, preventing disaster but causing the ship to plummet until Lloyd counters with anti-gravity magic to hold it steady. Suddenly, Grist behaves strangely and demands Michelle hand over the fragment of the Demon Lord. Michelle discovered that the Demon Lord's consciousness had taken over Grist's mind, using him as a vessel. Excited by the outcome, he hurled the fragment at Grist, who erupted with dark mana that terrified nearby monsters before dragging them into a swirling vortex. The energy warped, then dispersed, revealing Grist reborn as a chimera. Horrified onlookers watched as Michelle, thrilled by the result, observed his experiment unfold, but Grist, having lost all sanity, immediately struck him down. Even as he died, Michelle accepted his fate with satisfaction over his discovery. The chimera then shifted its focus to Lloyd's group, leaving them uncertain of survival. Meanwhile, Merlin, leaving Ryan's castle, was intercepted by Will carrying urgent news. Back on the ship, the chimera attacked, forcing Lloyd to strengthen Dagas, who admitted he could withstand only a few more blows. The crew began to evacuate, but the chimera blocked their escape. Syrian prepared to fight with his ice sword, yet Claire stopped him, reminding him that innocent beings were trapped inside the monster. Syrian yielded while Yu and Cross unleashed ranged attacks, only for the chimera to counter with fire and wind that fused into a raging tornado, deflecting their strikes. Panic spread as Lloyd desperately searched for a way to survive. Merlin and Will reach the ship's location through the alchemist's teleportation spell, while the sorceress used her magic to track their allies and overhear their struggle, allowing them to get closer. Inside, Silica's strikes against the chimera proved useless, each failure crushing their hope of survival. Realizing magic alone would not work, Lloyd devised a desperate plan, ordering his companions to stay near the wall before canceling the gravity spell. The ship plummeted, hurling everyone to the ground, including the chimera, and creating an opening to escape. Lloyd urged them to flee, and they obeyed, though the support mage was left last, enduring the beast's devastating fusion of air and fire. Despite the crushing force, he barely managed to raise a shield and survive. Outside, Celian tried forming an ice platform to break their fall, but the chimera's blast melted it instantly. The enraged monster burst from the wreckage, forcing the adventurers to leap however they could. In the chaos, Celian calmly tried again, finally conjuring a platform strong enough to hold them, though one final safeguard was still needed to ease their descent. Silica, remembering she needed Lloyd's help, called on him to strengthen her wind breath with a support spell so its pressure would peak just as the ice platform neared the ground. The group watched nervously as Lloyd searched for the right moment, then shouted for her act. Silica unleashed the spell, the burst of air slowing their fall just enough for everyone to leap clear before the platform shattered. Relieved and proud, she felt joy at her success while Lloyd encouraged her, proving once again his worth as their leader. Yet despite his usefulness, he still doubted himself whenever praised, though the others had come to accept his humility as part of who he was. Off to the side, Celian spoke with Claire, admitting he had lived his life fighting alone and believing others only held him back, but meeting Lloyd had overturned that belief. He confessed the boy was truly special, and Claire agreed without hesitation. Their relief was short-lived, however, as the ship crashed violently, forcing the group to flee from the massive explosion, and Claire wept in anguish at the thought of her children still trapped within the chimera's body. To her shock, the enemy still lived and had grown twice its size from a strange reaction. Without hesitation, Lloyd ordered everyone to flee into the forest. Just then, Will and Merlin arrived, and the sorceress used her spell to hear the adventurers hidden among the trees, puzzled by how one beast could contain so many species. Lloyd explained his theory. As Michelle had said on the ship, Claire's ancestral power resonated with the animals, awakening the Demon King's vital source, which absorbed every creature nearby and formed the Chimera. Though no one knew why it pursued them so fiercely, Lloyd suspected Grist remained inside it, carrying his desire to claim Claire. Daggis urged Lloyd to conceal the princess, but the mage admitted it would not stop the creature. The only escape was to kill it. Seeing Silica's worry, she asked if the animals trapped within could be saved. After thinking, Lloyd believed it possible. Claire would need to sing again, this time empowered by a support spell to channel her magic directly into the Demon King's source and reach the animals inside. The adventurers debated their desperate plan, with Cillian doubting its success while Lloyd asked if anyone had a better idea. Claire, determined to save the animals, agreed to try, and the group set their roles as the Chimera drew near. Just as they prepared to act, Merlin appeared to stop them, warning that ancestral magic would kill anyone who used it without being a true heir, and that risk fell on Lloyd. But Lloyd, strengthened by what he had learned from his companions, insisted he had discovered his own talent and believed he could succeed despite the danger. Merlin reminded him not to be overconfident, yet he argued it was not arrogance but awareness of his abilities, acknowledging how difficult it was to surpass a mentor. Left without words, Merlin watched as her apprentice and his allies advanced to face the Chimera. She stands frozen, unable to accept that her apprentice would invoke the ancestral spell that once brought her tragedy, yet Lloyd has chosen his fate. As the Chimera nears, Cillian rains ice spears to distract it, giving the support mage the chance to leap onto the beast and drive his staff into its body. Claire resumes her chant, and Lloyd releases a strengthening circle that channels the ancestral spell's force into the staff. The overwhelming power crushes him, yet he endures until the Chimera bursts into beams of light drawn into a black hole above. Victory comes with a cost. Lloyd is dragged into the vortex as well beyond his allies' reach. He awakens in a void of endless white where Grist dissolves into nothingness and his own body drifts apart from him. A voice echoes, warning that his body and mind are separating, and disturbingly, his companions outside can hear it too, though none can tell who speaks. Merlin recognized the voice as truthful, revealing that ancestral magic came from a once prosperous race whose power exceeded human understanding. They forged spells that bent space and time, yet their danger forced a ban, leaving only chosen heirs to use them while outsiders perished attempting control. Lloyd remembered a failure of such magic, and Sybil confirmed it, admitting he once wielded it against the Demon King. With legendary mages, he nearly triumphed, but human impatience let the enemy self-destruct, erasing a civilization. Sybil then sacrificed himself, breaking the barrier between life and death to restore lives at the cost of his own. As the tale ended, black energy dragged Lloyd away, while Sybil delayed the punishment of ancestral magic, granting him the chance to wield it if he understood its essence. At Sybil's command, Lloyd touched his chest, falling into memories of his companions, whose voices soon pulled him from the void back into the world. Merlin quietly thanked Sybil, her eternal partner, and the next day in the Forest Empire's castle, the group was stunned to learn that Lloyd's mentor was the great sage Merlin herself. Thinking him mad for never saying so, they realized he had never known her legendary past. Cillian then apologized to Claire for losing her gifted bag, though she only smiled and promised another. Soon they met the King of Fours, receiving a mansion in the capital as reward. Rion suddenly appeared, sniffing Lloyd and claiming his magical scent matched Merlin's. Merlin explained the beast folk's aura and introduced Rion as her friend. Though apprentice and master held different essences, their mastery of magic was the same, astonishing the team, though Lloyd failed to see its meaning. Merlin, once of the party that defeated the Demon King, asked if he would return with her, but Lloyd chose to stay with his friends, honoring the king's request and his dream to master all spells. Rion remarked he was just like her, a truth that stirred memories of her constant presence. Later, Merlin apologized to Will, but he assured her he didn't mind so long as it was for her. She reminded him the war was not over and that Lloyd's power would be needed when the Demon King returned. Meanwhile, the heroes celebrated their mansion, marveling at how much had gone their way since Lloyd's arrival, yet he humbly denied his strength, making them laugh once again at his unmatched modesty.